A micro lesson is a short and to-the-point video that teaches you about a single concept in RuneScape. This time, one of our combat and PvM experts, Thaxy, who's a teacher on the Raid FC staff, is going to teach us about the different types of arrows in RuneScape, specifically the new dyed arrows.
This micro lesson will cover some information for all skill levels, including which arrows to camp and which could or should be used as switches. To start off with, and for comparison's sake, commonly used Bakriminel bolts give about 12,000 to 60,000 damage per minute increase depending on the type of bolt used. Obviously, Hydrix are the adrenaline source for Rangers, and losing those is a big hit to our options for both damage and utility. That's important to state up front, because this lesson will focus primarily on the damage aspect of the comparison. You will probably use about 50 to 80 anima arrows per minute in combat, so I expect them to be fairly expensive. We'll start with Jas Arrows. These give 30% damage and 20% hit chance increase against demons or dragons. I don't know if I need to tell you this, but these are wicked strong. A high-end range rotation with base ammo should easily clear 200,000 damage a minute, if not much more. So right off the bat, these are doing 60,000 plus damage, easily competing with Hydrix Ruby swapping. We'll be using these everywhere they apply, like ED2 or the upcoming Zamorak-themed dungeon. Second on our list are Wen Arrows. These give a stacking buff each time you hit a target with a non-bleed basic ability, up to 15 stacks, and using any threshold or ultimate consumes those stacks to give a damage buff. For each stack consumed, the duration of the buff increases by 1 tick, and the strength increases by 2% for thresholds and 3% for ultimates, meaning these will cause you to do more damage than Jas Arrows for a brief period of time. It's worth noting that Deadshot's bleed continues to benefit from this effect, even after the arrow expires, meaning Deadshot should clear 20,000 average damage when used with these. I think these have the potential to be amazing, but they're definitely challenging to use, since they heavily limit when you can push out big damage. My current thought on these is that you should switch to them in your ultimate rotation after your first round of thresholds. Then you can spec and use basics to get them stacked before firing off several thresholds and a Deadshot in succession to take advantage of the buff from the arrows. Next up are Ful Arrows. These give plus 15% damage, but minus 10% accuracy. For the endgame folks, I expect these will show up as a switch for use with hard-hitting thresholds and special attacks during ultimates. From a more casual perspective, I expect these to be more expensive and less powerful than Bakriminel bolts, and weaker in a sustained rotation than some other arrow options. These will probably be a decent option for players with 99 range who have a decimation or nox bow, but who don't have a crossbow option to use Bakriminels. They may also be a good option for Slayer, where enemies generally have lower armor values and don't survive long enough for the player to benefit from arrow effects that need to stack. Last of the new options are Bik Arrows. Each arrow that hits the target applies a stack that gives 2% extra damage to any poison damage taken, up to 400% at max stacks. The stacks fall off after 30 seconds. I've seen a lot of theory crafting about how we could make these good, because the effects sound so strong. They would make your poison hit well over 100,000 damage a minute with the right setup. But the fact of the matter is that stacking these takes so long and costs so much in terms of the other ammo that you could use, that by the time these are stacked, the net DPS gain probably isn't in the positive. If I'm wrong about that, these could potentially see some use for Solak, Hard Mode Carapac, or at high-end rages against the Arc Glacior. From our old quiver, we have the Blackstone Arrows. Each arrow that hits the target applies a stack, which reduces the target's defense by 0.75%, up to a maximum of 15%. The debuff lasts longer than the typical kill time for any boss in the game, and can be a decent alternative to having a meleeer use the Statius Warhammer special for bosses like Solak, AOD, or the Mazcab raids. Stacking them can be done in under 10 seconds with greater ricochet. Just stack the Blackstone arrows at the start of your kill, then switch to a DPS arrow. Moving on to other arrow options. We talked pretty extensively about the Croesus arrows last fall, and you can find the nibbles of those explanations from the podcast linked in the description. The short version is that both Croesus arrows are incredibly strong. Splintering Arrows apply a buff to you when you use the Greater Dazing Shot ability that causes all of your non-bleed damage splats to apply a stack of puncture and refresh the uptime on the puncture bleed. Splintering Arrows make Salt the Wound a very strong threshold option with a low cooldown, and offer about 45,000 damage per minute altogether when camped on a poisonable target. They can also be stacked in advance to just take advantage of having a 13-stack puncture running, which will offer heavy damage on top of whatever other ammo you're using, as long as you continue to apply Greater Dazing Shot or Salt the Wound. Once fully stacked, you no longer consume arrows, making these relatively affordable to camp for targets with larger health pools and no invulnerability mechanics. Our last entrant are the Deathspore Arrows. Deathspore Arrows apply a stack to you every time they crit. At 5 stacks, your next adrenaline costing ability becomes free, and you cannot gain stacks for 60 seconds. Each crit during this cooldown period decreases the cooldown by 1.8 seconds. I generally use these as a switch with a Grimoire to time having a free ultimate so that I can start the high damage portion of my ultimate immediately. For comparison, Hydrix Bolts will give you an average of about 130% adrenaline per minute when camped, so 100% adrenaline for a switch you use outside of your ultimate is a pretty strong option. As always, these micro lessons are intentionally brief. There's quite a bit that goes into deciding which ammo you should be using, and you'll need to make that decision for your individual situation. Let us know whether you plan on using any of the new arrows, or if you think we've missed anything in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave it a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe.